Courtney, again, thank you for joining me this afternoon. I want to start by giving you the opportunity to let our viewership know, who is Courtney Head? Give us a little bit of the background of your history.
Yes, thank you, Dylan. My name is Courtney Head, and I grew up in San Antonio. I was raised there by a single mom and my grandparents, and I went to University of Houston to get my undergraduate degree in philosophy and political science with a focus on political philosophy and modern political theory. And during my undergraduate time, I also worked several jobs. I was a certified technician at Apple, and I also interned for Congressman Joaquin Castro during that time. That was my first exposure into public service and public policy. After undergrad, I realized I had some student loans I needed to pay off, so I went into the corporate, commercial, and contracts legal space where I have worked my way up as a young woman to be head of legal operations and management for a software company here domestically that serves most of the airlines and utility industries. And then my husband and I are actually back in San Antonio. We're raising our two daughters here, and our oldest is spending her first year in kindergarten at public school, of course. So that's been an adventure. And I was just doing really great in my career, and I was just really frustrated with the political climate that we experienced. So I decided that, looking at the skill sets that I have in legal operations and management, I was like, this applies directly to what the lieutenant governor does, and why not advocate for real change and systemic change by an average person? So that's kind of what brought me into here in my background.
Yeah, sure. So you had some experience with public policy as an intern with Congressman Castro. What sort of responsibilities did you have as an intern?
Yeah, so I was an administrative intern at his local field office in San Antonio because before my time at University of Houston, I was at San Antonio College and got a degree from there as well. And so as an administrative intern, I was processing all kind of constituent calls or applications for assistance or just messages. I would also attend like field events with the congressman if he was visiting. There was I remember distinctly a local, excuse me, a biomed company that we were had the opportunity to tour and learn about the advances they had in oxygen-related wound therapy, which was just really cool. It was exposure to, getting a direct access, dealing with the constituents, hearing their actual concerns, which I felt was really beneficial for me at the time, especially being in the local office as opposed to DC.
Have you ever run for a public office before this?
No, this is my first time running for public office, and that is a very wild statement. Trust me, I've gotten a lot of interesting discourse about it on the campaign trail. But I decided that we're in a crisis here, not just in the state of Texas, but federally as well when it comes to constitutional protections. And I have a very strong foundation in constitutional political theory. And I wanted to just ensure that we have an average voice, right, of someone who's intelligent, who's forward-thinking and progressive, and really wanting to advocate for younger individuals and, the generations that are going to be maintaining and trying to, recuperate from all of the poor policy that has been placed upon us.
Did you ever debate, maybe running for a state representative seat, a state senate seat? Because going for the lieutenant governor, you're one step down from the governor of Texas. It's a huge job. Dan Patrick, who's in it now, has been in there for a while, has a lot of clout in that office. What? And you've sort of answered this, but really hitting that point, why go for such a top position right off the bat when you run for office?
Yes. So I did look at other roles, but I felt that the work that I have, so I'm the only candidate that actually has executive leadership experience. And that is important, even though I'm young, I do have almost a decade of leadership experience in the legal realm. And so I felt that my skill sets and my career knowledge would be most applicable there because the work that the lieutenant governor does day in and day out is essentially what I'm doing, managing the legal operations of the company I work for. So I felt that that's where my skills were most applicable, and I also knew that the market for the other uh, seats would be much more competitive. Not that this one is not, but there's usually a lot more candidates in the lower seats, which is not a big deal. I don't mind the competition, but I just wanted to put myself in a position where my skills would be most applicable and most impactful, and also to ensure that we have a objective and young voice who would be willing to speak on behalf of Texans.
Do you feel you have a firm grasp about how the legislative process works in Texas?
I do. Obviously, do not have the actual practice of the legislative process, but working in the commercial corporate legal space, it's just as knowledge based and intensive. And it's not necessarily a direct parallel, but I have a pretty great understanding of what the actual legislative process is in the Senate, and how the lieutenant governor can use those powers. I understand that we have other candidates who have that legislative experience, but to be in the House of Representatives is not necessarily the exact same thing that you would need for the executive leadership role of the lieutenant governor.
I know I was scanned your website before this. I saw some of the issues that matter most to you. I saw a high-speed rail for the state, legalizing cannabis, and having some regulation. And I saw public education. You do not support the voucher bill or the Texas education freedom accounts that are now being rolled out. You talk about your experience in your professional life. Could you explain, how you're going to use that experience with the roles and the responsibilities of lieutenant governor to accomplish those things you want to accomplish?
Yes, absolutely. So in my career, I have built a skill set of negotiation. And throughout my tenure, I have negotiated against international governments, all various types of government entities locally and domestically in the United States, as well as Fortune 500 companies. And those skill sets really team me up to be able to deliver results when it comes to negotiating. I have a lot of skills and a lot of experience in getting deals finalized. And I think that what I have as far as a perspective is when you're in the private sector, you have to finalize deals. If you don't get your work done, you're going to get fired. It's a lot more, make or break than it is in the government. And I want to bring that energy to Texas politics. If we're not delivering results for the people of Texas, we should be in fear of our jobs. We should not be. And having public accountability is a huge part of that. There's a lot of different avenues to uh, kind of evolve how we do the legislative session in the Senate. For example, there is not a lot of remote testimony allowed, which really inhibits a lot of Texans from being able to comment and to provide their testimony on public policy and how it's directly impacting them. And I think that if we need to, you know, expand this. We need to bring Texas politics into the 21st century, especially when it comes to streamlining processes and innovating, our technology aspects to ensure that all Texans are representative and have a voice in Texas politics. So I would use those skills, the technology background I have, the contract negotiation background I have, and ensure that we have results driven actions.
You talk about, you sound like a deal maker. What do you think it is about you that makes you a good deal maker?
I am always coming from the perspective of listening first. And I think that that really goes a long way. What I've come to discover in all aspects of my career, and this was even an undergrad when I was at Apple, is people want to be heard and listened to, regardless of if your ideas or your concepts are in conflict with that. It's essential that we provide all these Texans a voice and we listen. And so when I approach these negotiations in my professional career, I'm always listening first and looking at opportunities where I can align with individuals and acknowledge them that, we may not have the same beliefs, but the outcome that is going to be guaranteed the best for everybody. And so I'm usually able to close these negotiations because I'm very agreeable and I'm a very good listener. And I will always find the opportunity to um, take advantage of the needs for others.
This is your first campaign. You are going up against two other Democratic opponents. I'm curious to know, as a first-time campaigner, what is, some of the things that you've learned, and do you think you've done a good job getting your name out there for a statewide position?
Yes, so to things that I have learned, I think that I understood that money ran everything, but I didn't understand how deeply interwoven it is in the public sphere and for politicians. Um, it is honestly very disheartening to come across this because it really is a play to keeps kind of situation, which is something I was aware of, but there's just so much money that goes into politics that seems that it is antithetical to our democratic principles because with money involved, it inherently corrupts the system. And so that was just something that was kind of a slap in the face even more. You know, you hear about it, but it's just the exposure to how everything is monetized was just really disheartening to see. And as far as getting my name out there, I have been using social media a lot and my own networks. So, for example, I think that one advantage, and I hopefully whoever wins the primary candidacy will use this advantage as well. Is I have a lot of friends in the music industry, and being able to have word of mouth when a DJ's on set is indispensable. You don't have that kind of real practice, and when you're canvassing neighborhoods, it's just not the same. And so, being able to advocate in different ways has been the approach. I think it's been helpful. Have I been able to buy all the advertising from all the major, news networks? No, right? It costs a lot of money to do that kind of advertising. So I don't. I would say my name recognition is definitely alternative, and it's not a traditional campaign style. A lot of social media, a lot of word of mouth from people in the music industry and various other industries of entertainment.
If you pull this off and you win the Democratic primary, you'd have to take on Dan Patrick, and he's sort of a juggernaut in Texas politics. So, a Democrat has not sat in that position of lieutenant governor, I believe, since the 90s. So, what is it? This is your chance to convince the voters out there on the first day of early voting. What is it about you that you could topple a Republican?
Um, I think that I have a very eloquent way of speaking, and I would love to, walk in like a dog during a debate, and have the voters see, because there's really nothing that him or his party can say that is going to change the fact that they have been in power for nearly 3 decades. And the outcomes show that Texas is the poorest in healthcare, education, um, public transportation. I mean, we're succeeding in some areas. Yes, we have a great economy, but not all Texans appreciate that or experience that. A lot of us are struggling, right? We have a lot of affordability um, issues, not just in urban settings, but also rural. And so I think that for me, the opportunity to be able to essentially just slam this all back into Dan's face and see how he responds. Like, how are you going to respond when all of these issues are caused by your lack of innovation, right? They are so focused on legislating ideology and Christian nationalism that there is no true progress for the people of Texas, right? They're having us divided over issues that are really nonsensical. A person's religion is personal to them, and the state should not be involved.
Courtney, is there anything else you'd like to add about yourself and your campaign?
To end and finish, I appreciate the time today, and I want all the voters, especially young voters, to understand that change is possible. And it may seem like a crazy idea to vote for a 35-year-old woman into this role, but without change, we will never create the progress that we need in Texas. And I hope that this also inspires other young Texans to maybe take accountability for their political um, policy choices, right? And their political participation and kind of join the movement and let's create some systemic change and collaborate as a community.